This is the 6 ways to make your property more valuable in the next 3 months without spending a dime. I'm really talking here about income producing commercial real estate. I'm not talking about residential properties, although this will apply to rental properties, but we're not talking about like house flips or anything like that, because the residential market uses fair market value and we use income and expenses. So how do we make our property more valuable on these rental properties, on these commercial properties, okay? There are 2 ways we can do it. It's very simple. We can either increase our income, have more money coming in, or number 2, we can reduce our expenses. If we have $100 of income and $40 of expenses, that would give us a $60 profit. So how can we increase our profit? We can either raise our income from 100 to 110, and that would raise our profit from 60 to 70. Or if we didn't do that and instead we dropped our expenses from 40 to 30, we would still also increase our profit from 60 to 70. So 3 on the income side, 3 on the expense side. Let's dive into the income side. Number 1 way, which is my favorite on how to do this without spending any money. Of course, we could always go out and spend money and build more buildings or do a renovation or whatever. But my favorite number 1 way is what I like to call revenue management or rate management. Really all this is just paying attention to how much I'm renting my space out for to customers. Now, as a self-storage investor, I get to change my customers' rates every 30 days if I want to, right? And I also get to change how much my empty units that I'm renting those out for, I can change those every day. I can change those every hour if I wanted to. But that's what rate management is. It's looking at how much are you renting units to for new customers and how much are you renting units to for existing customers. So if you've got a single family house, you may have to wait until your customer moves out until you can actually raise that revenue, raise that rental rate on them. Or if they're moving out and their lease is expiring, how much you can set it to that new person. So I always like to go out. I like to do a market survey. I do what's called a secret shop, which is effectively I'll just call a local competitor. If I've got apartments, I'll call another apartment complex, or I'll look and research their website, try to figure out what is the true market rate for my unit, right? Now, if you've got a unit that is currently occupied, you know your tenant's moving out, you can pre-lease that unit. If you've got 4 months before your unit moves out, if you think you can go rent that unit for $1,500, why not? It's early. Why not go try and rent it for $1,600 or $1,700, right? Now, some people say, well, you're trying to charge too much. Hey, if somebody doesn't want to rent it, they don't have to agree to it, right? So that's what rate management is. It's just paying attention, being proactive to how much you're charging for units. And then on customers that are coming up for renewal, or if you're on month-to-month leases, is going out there and actively raising your revenue and raising the rents on your customers. Even if it's just by a little bit, it adds up over time. I would, guys, personally never renew a lease without some sort of rental rate increase in there, even if it's 1%, even if I change the rent from $1,000 to $1,010. You have to take the action of raising the rents on people, or else they think that they're never going to get the rent raised. So set the expectations, even if it's not a big one, even if it's $1, raise people's rents. It's super critical you do that when leases roll over and renew, okay? Number 2 way is to offer additional products or services. So one of the ways that I do this in self-storage is whenever I can, if I buy a property, I look around and I go, where can I add parking spots? Where can I give people the ability to park a boat, to park an RV? How can I generate income out of the land that I own that currently isn't generating any income, right? That's effectively what I try to look to do. I'll also do things like charge people late fees if they're not charging late fees. If you got customers that pay late and you want them to pay on time, a way you can generate more revenue is charging late fees. Really, late fees are just kind of a negative reinforcer, which is, hey, don't be late on your rent, but sometimes it can be additional revenue, right? Another way that you could increase your income, again, additional products, like if you own, a multifamily complex or whatever it is, maybe you want to add in a coin-operated wash station. If you own an RV park, maybe you want to start washing people's RVs for them. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but a lot of people are just lazy, right? A lot of property owners, they're non-creative. They just sit and go, well, we're renting these spaces out. That's that, right? There's always ways you can make extra money. These are little side hustles you can do in your own property that you already own to maximize revenue. So that's number 2 way. Look for additional products or services that you can do for customers. The number 3 way to increase your income is to think of a different use. I've got a property right now that I'm actually under contract to buy, and the current use for that property, they've got a couple different uses, but one of the uses in there is a cabinet shop. They've got people in 10,000 square feet of space renting cabinets out, and I'm like, man, I just really don't think that's a great use of space for how much they're paying. What if because they're paying a really, really cheap rate, right? What if I got rid of that tenant, and what if I parked RVs inside? What if I parked boats inside? Could I get more income than what I'm currently getting, right? So whenever you think about a space, and a lot of people have done this in the single family game, which is, hey, I'm gonna turn this house, and instead of the use of a family living here, I'm going to use it as short-term rentals. That's a flip of use, right? So anytime you can flip the use of a space to generate more income, it's generally something that you can do without any capital improvements, without spending any money. That's the best way to do it. But sometimes you go in there and you say, okay, well, I can Airbnb this, but I have to buy a bunch of furniture, right? So you do have to spend money. So look for ways in which you can flip the use of a space without doing anything. I'll give you an example. I had on one of my properties, I've got a 6-unit, and I had a shed that nobody was using on it, and it was honestly kind of ran down. I didn't really ever want to put any money into it because I thought, whatever, you know. And a tenant came one day and said, hey, can I use that shed? And I said, I tell you what, you can use the shed if you fix the shed up, and you can have it for free for a year, and then you pay me $100 a month after that. So I generated additional revenues by changing the use of that shed. The use was not usable and not being rented to, why don't you fix it up in exchange for 1 free year of rent? After that, you can pay me $100 a month. Now, I'm not getting rich off $100 a month, but if I ever go to sell that property, guess what? $1,200 a year on a, let's say 7 cap, that comes out to $15,000, $20,000 of value. So I definitely made the property more valuable. And that's the 3rd way to increase your income. Now, let's talk about how do we reduce our expenses without spending any money. Sounds kind of contrary. How do we spend less money without spending less money, right? Well, sometimes you spend less money like getting rid of your power bill by putting solar panels on your roof. Well, that sounds good, but we can't really do that, right? There's a lot of ways to reduce your expenses, but you have to spend money to reduce your expenses, okay? What I'm talking about doing is, here are 3 things you can not spend money on and reduce your expenses. Number 1 is you can go out and you can do what's called appealing your property taxes. So if you're watching this, there's a 100% chance, and you own property, there's a 100% chance that you're paying property taxes, right? Even if you don't own a property and you're renting a property, in a way, you're paying property taxes. You're just paying your landlord's property taxes, right? Through your rent. But one of the things, once you own property, you can appeal your property taxes. You can go and say, well, I don't think this is a fair valuation of the property. So you can go down to the county, and the worst thing they can do is they can say, no, we think you are paying. But sometimes just by the act of going down and reducing your property taxes, they'll drop your property tax bill from $10,000 a year to $8,000 a year. Boom, you make an extra $2,000 a year through that paperwork. Now, there's actually this cool thing. There's these attorneys out there who will go do this for you, and then you pay them like half of however much they save you in property taxes. So if you didn't want to do this yourself, you could find an attorney that would do that. And again, it wouldn't cost you anything out of pocket up front. You would just pay part of your savings, which is still additional money in your pocket. The number 2 way to reduce expenses is negotiate your services, right? You ever notice, like I definitely notice, how my phone bill, right? My phone bill, when I first signed up, it was $90 a month, okay? Which is kind of high. But then, 6 months later, it's $112 a month. And I'm like, what the heck happened? And now I think I just checked, it's $130 a month. And I'm like, what is going on here, right? I'm not getting anything extra, but it keeps going up. Well, I'll tell you what's happening. AT&T, or whoever you use, they're practicing the first thing I told you, which is rate management. They're bumping it up, bumping it, bumping it up. But these guys, they are super willing because, they kind of just have like this unlimited ability to sell cell phone plans and services. So if you say, hey man, what the heck, my services, my Wi-Fi, my phone bill, my internet, whatever it is that you're using and paying for at your rental property creeps up, you can call them and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to a competitor the way that my rate is. I see this other promo this other company has going on. I'm thinking about switching here, but, is there anything you can do for me on my rate? So just going to your providers and asking for a discount and negotiating the current rate you're paying Doesn't sound like a lot, but you've got a phone bill for a property, you've got an internet bill for a property, and you've got a garbage bill for a property. If you can reduce all of those by, let's say, $10 a month, that's $30 a month, that's $360 a year. Again, not a ton of money, but you're reducing your expenses and you're keeping more of the money that is due to you. Anyway, so that's my number 2 way, negotiate your services and your service contracts, okay? I kind of caveat here. Like if it's somebody like, my lawn care guys or, my property management company, I don't want to beat those guys up on price. I want to make sure that they're happy, they're doing a good job for me. I'm just talking about like the big companies, you know what I mean? Where you're just a little digit on their books, right? So the third way, guys, is insurance. Insurance is expensive and you won't believe how much money you can save and how much of different prices you can get from insurance providers, right? Like I have gotten I've gotten insurance quotes that are double what I've ended up paying. I'm talking about like, somebody quoted me $20,000 and I ended up paying $10,000. Well, you don't really ever know how, and that's per year, per property, right? You don't ever really know on that first one. If you just got one insurance quote from your buddy John, who's an insurance agent, and he gave you a price, you don't really know if you're overpaying or not. It's 100% free to go out and to get new insurance quotes. Now, kind of the way the insurance game works, and I'm not a super professional, but like there's this like field of underwriters and brokers will kind of take it out there and put it in there. So sometimes if you go to 2 people who are putting in the same field, they can't really get you a better price because they're just like middlemanning and kind of going to the same bucket or of providers anyways, right? But what you can do is there's other people out there, like I think Farmers underwrites their own. Like there are some other companies that don't go to that same pool. So you got to go to different people. I'd go to at least 3 different people. I'd go to a local person, like if you're in Atlanta, go to an Atlanta guy. If you are, trying to do self-storage or apartments, I'd find somebody else who's an apartment specialist. I would just search around for different types of insurance providers to get my different quotes. But again, it's going to take you probably an hour to fill out the paperwork. But imagine in 3 hours if you get 3 different quotes. And generally, it's easier if you just take your current insurance policy, send it over to them. It reduces the work on you by a lot. But you should be doing this every single year in order to keep your expenses low, and that will boost your property value. So overall, that's how you increase the value. Those are my ways of doing it without spending any money. We've got a lot of other ways to do it, but it requires money to be spent. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it taught you something. I hope you can put some of these lessons into play. Again, if you did, help me out, make the YouTube gods happy. Hit like, hit subscribe, or check out some of these videos over here on the other side. I'm sure you might like 1 or 2 of them, particularly if you're just looking to get more into commercial real estate. Be great.